I mean, this is a fucking banger. This is a Noobs in Space song. We are, of course, me and Rob, as always, are joined today by, I'm going to say, a legend in the game, or a growing legend for sure. His name is John Fanning. He is the CEO, founder, I don't know, president, whatever you want to say. He can probably explain that better, of Zelgor. It is a company that I believe you can still invest in. Is that right, John? Can you still invest in
Absolutely.
in,
Go to
Zelgor on Net Capital?
invest.zelgor.com, smash that invest button, and you too can become a shareholder in the absurdity that is Zelgor and the Noobs for sure. And president, CEO, living legend, whatever you want to call me is totally fine with me.
Yeah, I'm an investor. And of course, we also have Rob with us.
Hi, how are you?
Well said. That's me. Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you and listen in with John here. It is cool shit he's got going on. He's an innovative guy. You know, he's doing stuff that I've never thought of and making money in ways that I think is new in general as well. Fundraising, things like that. So it should be pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, just a little background on how we know John. We met in college, all three of us, actually, as it were. And even back then, I remember John hustling occasionally on the phones, trying to get investors for this new company that we knew little about. I mean, for the longest time, it was just this little dream that I think he had in his head. And I mean, the way I want to start this out is just really in general, ask you what got you into this field that you're currently in.
It was mostly a borderline irresponsible love for video games growing up. I imagine both of you were as well. Played video games probably too much growing up. I played a lot of Halo, a lot of Call of Duty. I dabbled a little bit in World of Warcraft, which I don't know if either of you two were familiar with, but I played too much World of Warcraft. But I learned a tremendous amount about games and virtual immersive worlds, and that was the first time I was like, it would be so awesome to build one of those. And but for me, above all else, I played a ton of my Game Boy growing up. I grew up going to school an hour away from where I lived, so I was playing my Game Boy to and from school every day. So by the time the iPhone came out, I was like, oh man, it's a cell phone, a Game Boy in one device. You know, the games in this thing are going to be amazing. And when I saw the types of games that were blowing up on smartphones, it inspired me to get into the space and try to build something that I felt like was sort of more up to the potential of what I thought the space could be. And we'll see if that was a good idea or not. I think the jury's still out on that one.
Well, I think you're on the right track. Matt, go ahead.
I just want, on that kind of note, like at what point, when you went to college, you majored in business, I know. And at what point did you really think you were going to get into the game development sphere? Or was that something you had before you got into college that was a goal? Or like when you got like sophomore year or something, did you get more interested in it? Like at what point did you really start forming?
Well, I was in a very unique position growing up. My dad and my cousin Sean were the co-founders of Napster, and that happened when I was literally in first grade. So, I had a very unique perspective of obviously like a very transformational company. So I saw like the power of entrepreneurship, and I saw success at, the highest level. And so I figured, oh man, that seems really easy. Just start a company, become the fastest growing company on the internet, and, boom, you're off and running from there. But so I knew I wanted to make games. I had an idea for a specific game. I played the board game Risk a lot, like way too much growing up. And I remember being fascinated.
Oh,
yes, absolutely. Especially like I was in a very competitive family. So, my dad would roll 6 after 6, and it's like you just want to flip the table over. So there was definitely some rage there that fueled my entrepreneurial spirit. And I just thought it would be so cool to build a game like that, but like on top of the GPS capabilities of your phone, where you're like actually walking around and taking over places that you knew and you care about. So I sort of had that idea in my head going into college. I knew that I wanted to do something entrepreneurial. So I certainly had the foundations in my head, but it didn't really all start coming together until probably around my sophomore or junior year when I was accepted to Draper University.
Wait, you, what do you, are you, when did
Elaborate.
you, yeah, that is definitely news to both of us,
Elaborate.
I think.
What is
Close.
Draper? Is Dom
Yeah.
Draper?
Close.
Is
Tim
this
Draper.
Like a
He's
Mad
like
Men
one of the
reference?
world's largest holders of Bitcoin. And one summer I got accepted into his business school for entrepreneurs. He had actually just started the school. The school is now much bigger now, much more prominent. They've had a number of different amazing companies come out of it. And I was lucky enough to be in the inaugural class back when clearly the bar was low enough where somebody like I could get into it. And Tim and I.
But you could also make the argument that there were less spots, right? There were less spots, so you were even in an upper
I'm about to hire you
crust,
to be my PR guy, Rob. That's a great point. There were very few spots. I was one of the I was one of the select
Bring me
few
on, baby.
who had the honor of going there, and it was great because it was the first year of the program. So Tim himself, he was so heavily involved. I mean, he was there every day, and I just had an amazing opportunity to really pretend to be a venture capitalist and sit on his side of the table. And it was so funny to me because these companies would come in to pitch him. And first of all, most of them had no idea that Tim was going to then put them in front of a room of 35 people, all extremely eager to impress him, trying to ask the most difficult questions we could possibly think of. And there were people much smarter than I was there, guys who went to Stanford and Caltech and all these amazing schools. So when they tried to ask a really hard question, it was like, light years beyond my ability to comprehend what they were saying. And so it was a really, in a lot of ways, maybe unfair situation to put these entrepreneurs in. But it really taught me so much about like the level of preparation you need when you go in to pitch a guy like Tim and what somebody who has been, astronomically successful in their career, what is it that gets them excited about a company? What is it that they like to invest in? So I learned a tremendous amount from that experience, and it was a 4-week program at the time. So I was in and out, in 1 month over the summer. So you guys didn't even notice I was gone because from your perspective, I wasn't gone. I was like I had never left. And Tim wound up becoming our first angel investor in our company as a result of my time there. And we really bonded over our mutual love of the board game Risk.
Wow.
It just so happens that he considers himself to be the risk master, which both is his willingness to make risky investments in startups, but also because he literally is a master of the board game Risk. So I just, we bonded over our competitiveness, our love of games. And that was really what got us off and running and set us down this path of absurdity that we're on now.
That's amazing. That's an amazing story. You are loading me up with ammo here for questions. I have so many questions. I'll just start with one. First of all, that's super cool. I think Matt and I, based on our extended pause, we were staring at each other here through the cameras. Did not know you did that.
No,
it is
no
awesome.
chance.
So that was summer between sophomore and
just
junior years
the
of
year
college,
before
right?
that we came back and won the ACC in basketball in improbable fashion.
A good way. Yes, it's a very good way to judge time and space. I like that.
So
that is
it
awesome.
was
Where
in
was
an
this?
abandoned hotel in San Mateo, California. So
What?
So yeah,
Holy shit!
he
Did
bought the
buy it? Did he
hotel.
like buy the hotel or
He
something?
bought the space across the street from the hotel, which he has since turned into an incubator. And the hotel, it's now a boarding school, so they've got like the classes on the bottom floor, and then they've got the hotel rooms all done up for the students. And Tim actually bought like the entire state's worth
Jesus,
of whiteboard paint and just like painted the walls in whiteboard paint so you could write like literally everywhere. And I'm sure the whole place is covered in it now. But when I was there, they had only had enough for like 2 or 3 floors at the time. Like the state of California literally ran out of this stuff because he just bought it all. So yeah, it was awesome. I had a nice hotel room for like.
Well, Matt.
No, it's okay.
Oh, that's incredible. I'm sorry I cut you off. I'm on a bit of a lag, I think. Matt,
Yes.
a big paint guy.
Yeah.
Imagine if he got the contract for all that whiteboard paint. Oh man, lives would have been changing upside down over here.
I mean, I'll say on that note, if I had gotten that contract, I would have gotten a hell of a lot more bonuses because that whiteboard paint is not cheap. I have sold it. I know exactly which product you're talking about. And it's actually not manufactured by Sherwin-Williams. Fuck it, I don't care if I say their name here. That's where I used to work.
Very cathartic. Very cathartic.
But yeah, I would have made a lot of money if I got that Tim contract for sure.
Well, this isn't about you, Matt. So, anyways, John, that I'm so baffled by that.
Fuck off!
Nice. That is so fucking cool. So, I would love to play maybe us four. He'd be the foursome. We need to play Risk,
Oh, yeah. We got
I am. This is a side story. Someone once pulled my girlfriend aside and asked if I abused her because of my behavior during Risk. She thought I was so violent because of my behavior during a game of Risk. She literally pulled my girlfriend aside and asked if she was okay and if I hurt her. And she was like, no. He's just really fucking angry at Risk. I threw a die. I whipped one of the die into my refrigerator.
So clearly,
the refrigerator dented it.
What we learned from that story is this individual who approached Alexis clearly has never played the board game Risk before. Otherwise, she would know. Yeah, there you go. Otherwise, she would know because the game takes so long, and it gets so tedious with the dice rolling, and then there's a lot of politicking back and forth, negotiation, trying to convince people to attack each other, and when it doesn't go your way, I mean, you want to fire a dice at the fridge. Yes. So I totally understand that.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my god, that is such a cool story. So he was your first
aside from my
well.
dad, who was my first, sort of supporter and the one who helped me sort of put all these pieces together. But yeah, Tim was the first, exactly. And it was funny because, Tim and I, we bonded over our love of the board game Risk, but the game that we played together more frequently was this game called Death Ball. And in this hotel, as most great luxurious hotels do, it had a pool. And we had a basketball hoop set up in the pool. And Death Ball was a game that Tim played, I think, fairly regularly. I don't know how often you could play this game, but it was essentially pool basketball with no rules. So you could scratch, you could claw. It was a very violent game. And it was one where, I'm a rather lanky individual, and the water is the great equalizer. So I've got these, sort of long arms, and I'm able to boa constrict myself around the ball in the water and just really be a nuisance. And so I quickly, climbed the ranks of Death Ball players. And I think that was really when I first got Tim's attention in the program.
Nice. Huge. That's huge. Yeah. That is huge. Death Ball.
I'll tell you what, though, Rob.
Really
based on your competitive spirit, I bet that you would have an absolute blast. I mean, we had a guy.
The thing is, I can't do
it.
It
helped
with
I didn't really know anyone. We had a guy. A guy came out of the pool. It looked like he got mauled by a tiger. He had scratch marks all over his chest. But he was a big guy. He could take it. Big Steve, we called him.
Holy shit. Yeah. Okay, that's fine. Big
Steve.
Big Steve is perfect for Death Ball.
So, yeah, I mean, you mentioned that obviously your dad and Tim were some of your first investors. How did you get those early investors, and what were you selling them on at the time? As far as, it was obviously a baby company that, I mean, honestly didn't have a product at the time per se. You just had a vision. So what did you do to get investors at that time?
So it's a good question. I think there's multiple ways to answer it. in general, what I tried to sell investors on is the vision, what we were looking to do. I tried to sell them on, the opportunity in the mobile game space in general. So you're talking back then, it was 2012. So I'm saying things like, look at Candy Crush, look at Clash of Clans. These games just came out. Now, all of a sudden, these companies are worth billions of dollars. But what I ultimately learned is at that stage, what people are going to invest in more than anything is the people. Tim wants to invest in people that he believes in. And I think ultimately, no matter what your company is, what you're doing, who the investor is, investing, buying, selling stocks, it's all driven by emotion. And people want to invest in people that, they have an emotional connection with and that they believe in. And so I think that was a big part of it. I was in a space that was big enough to be interesting to a guy like Tim, and I was able to form a connection with him. And that was a big part of, I think, what laid the groundwork for him ultimately becoming our first investor. And again, in week one, Tim never in a million years would have invested in my company and what we were doing. I had to go through the whole program. I had to learn about, how he thought about things, his approach to it. I had to become a better entrepreneur. And so by the end of the program, we were able to sort of get him over the finish line. And he actually came up to me and said, "Hey, stay in touch because, we want to fund you." And I was like, "Oh my God." I didn't know what to say. It was amazing. So yeah. I guess, so that's, that's in general, how do you get someone to invest in your company, right? The other part of your question, how do you find investors? That one's really hard to answer. And to be honest, I think the best answer is LinkedIn. Using second, third degree connections, finding people that and finding people that you want to know, and just figuring out, how to get to them and sort of networking your way there. And that's probably the best tool, I think, for raising capital is just posting what you're doing on LinkedIn in general, but then also trying to make connections and meeting people.
That's awesome. So that's what you're doing nowadays, investor wise? That's kind of, it's an ongoing process, never really
that's
stops,
the worst
right?
part.
And I was going to be my next question. What do you
about
do
being a CEO? I realized I got into the space because I wanted to make games. I wanted to make amazing products. And then I become the CEO of the company and it's oh no, your number one job is to go out and raise money. And it's oh no, that's the hardest part. So that's, it's a lot of connecting with people on LinkedIn. With Net Capital though, it's really been amazing because I have so many people who have invested in our company. We're at close to 1,000 people now who have invested, bought Zelgor stock at 50 cents a share. And most of them are people that I've never met, never spoken to. And that's just way better than meeting with people in person, spending, days, weeks, months building relationships with them. So from that standpoint, this method of raising capital is more advantageous from that perspective. But the other side, you can't neglect the other part of it too, because my mentality has always been, I just have to sort of assume that no one is going to put $1 into our campaign unless I, build a relationship with them and convince them to do it. And so anytime that doesn't happen and someone just comes out of the clouds to, go to invest.zelgor.com and click the invest button, I'm always tremendously appreciative. So it's, doing all the stuff that I was traditionally taught how to do. Like I said, connecting with people on LinkedIn, meeting people in any way that I can and building a relationship with them, telling them the story. But then on top of that, just making it as easy as possible for anyone to invest by clicking the button. So it's changed over time.
Absolutely. So obviously I think I mentioned Net Capital at the top of this, and going forward, how did you get involved with Net Capital? And can you just explain for the listeners what Net Capital is?
Great question, Matt. I was thinking the same thing.
It all started with fellow Miami Hurricane graduate class of 2014. Jason Frischman actually started out as my intern the summer after I closed Tim Draper. I had to go out and find other investors to sort of surround Tim with and do our first sort of friends and family sort of pre-seed round, which was intimidating for me because it was like, oh man, like my first investor I ever closed is like, the best investor you could possibly get in your deal. And I am very inexperienced as an entrepreneur. I have so much to learn at this point. And so Jason did a great job of helping, coming in as an intern and just sort of helping me get organized and get all the things in order. And he did a lot of the early sort of grunt work on LinkedIn, which helped us learn like the best way to leverage it as a tool to meet potential investors. And so with Jason, it was like best case scenario. Like we had one meeting with a potential investor, and there were a couple of investors in the room, and they all said yes after like the first meeting. And it was like, oh, wow, this is, clearly in the beginning of my entrepreneurial career, I was like, oh, this is so easy. Yeah. I'm going to be a billionaire in no time. And so we get these guys to agree. We put together the paperwork. We go back and forth negotiating on terms. And we spent like an entire summer just going back and forth with these investors on like just sort of very, mostly trivial details and transactional things. And so we like started these conversations in June. We closed them eventually in August is when we finally received the checks from these guys. And I was like, yes, like this is amazing. Let's go. Like we just raised $250,000, to build mobile games. But Jason, he had a totally different background. He came from the world of neuroscience. He was a neuroscience major. So he was used to things just like sort of working and being super efficient. And so he looked at it as like, wow, that was an extremely inefficient process. And surely there must be a way for technology to facilitate this and make all of it infinitely easier. So he took his experience, helping us raise money at Zelgor, and he went on to take advantage of the Jobs Act in my Apple Watch is yelling at me. He went on to take advantage of the Jobs Act, which went into effect, I think, in 2016, which suddenly allowed companies to sell stock in their business over the internet. And he built a funding portal, which is registered with the SEC. And that funding portal essentially facilitates people buying stock in private companies. So what I do with Zelgor is I say to Net Capital, hey, I'm willing to sell, X number of shares at Y price. I think we did our first offering at 25 cents a share. So we said we're willing to sell a block of shares at 25 cents a share, and anyone who wants to can invest. In a lot of ways, it's like going public. And we did that for the first time back in 2017 when we first came up with the concept for the noobs. Because when we first started hanging out, I mean, the noobs weren't on my radar at all. They came way later after I learned like, oh, wow, like, there needs to be a story here to this game that actually gets people even remotely interested. All the best games have that emotional connection. I always think of Pokemon, right? Like my dream at 10 years old was not to start a game company. It was to be a Pokemon master, right? Like we all felt. So that was how I got into Net Capital. Was we came up with the idea for the noobs. We were like, you know what? Let's like see if anyone cares about these creatures or are interested in these aliens. And we had like 150 people invest. 50 or so came from people that I knew, but over 100 were people I had never met before, which as I previously stated, is a great way to raise money. So we saw that and we were like, oh man, like this is really cool. So we took that money and we worked on the Noobs IP. We further integrated it into what we were doing. And before you know it, we had 2 games in development under the Noobs IP. And we went back on Net Capital a second time to announce our second game and show off all our progress and allow even more people to, join guys like Tim Draper and become early investors in the Noobs. And now we've gone from 150 people investing the first time at 25 cents a share to close to 1,000 people investing at 50 cents a share this time. So it's been incredible. I think it really transforms how companies can raise capital. And I think it opens up these deals, where all the value is created at the earliest possible stage. And it opens up that opportunity to everyone. How do guys like Tim Draper become billionaires? They're the ones who had the capital to invest in, SpaceX and Tesla and Skype in these deals when they were really early stage. And now that's an opportunity that's opened up to a lot more people. So I think it's great as a game company. It's a great way to, get guys like Matt to, feel invested in playing our game and spending money on it. So, yeah, it's just a great way to build community and raise the capital you need at the same time.
That's super
I
cool.
love
I
it.
have a very dumb question that I don't know the answer to anyways. You sell shares of your company. How do you determine how many shares you have? Is that just a set number? I've always wondered this about all companies, all stocks.
I don't think that's a dumb question at all. I think that's
right. Do you have a set number? Is it like crypto coins where there's just a defined
So
limit
there is when
you
you form a company, you basically put together a document typically called your operating agreement. And in the operating agreement, you just pick a number and say there are, it's like Michael Scott declaring bankruptcy, right? You're just like, I declare that we have, 1 million shares in our company. And so, creating that operating agreement, filing that with whatever state, your company is registered in, that is what creates those number of shares. And then to issue more shares, your board of governance, it's typically, it's dictated. Yes. Your operating agreement tells you how you can make more shares, but typically the board of directors can say, we're authorizing the creation of X number of more shares, and you shareholders just have to deal with it. Sometimes they're like, yeah, sounds good. Sometimes they're like, we're going to revolt. Sometimes you have no shareholders, so it doesn't matter.
Right. Oh, that's really cool. Yeah, I've always wondered that. It made no sense to me, but that makes sense. I guess it makes sense now that there's an answer, but it still
makes no
doesn't
sense.
make a ton of sense when you think about it. I guess it's kind of crazy. So you could kind of be like the Wu-Tang Clan when they came out with that album where they only had one copy. You could start a company and say, hey, we're only going to have one share. And you could just try to sell it for all you fucking got, Just be like, you want this share? Come and fucking get it, bud. Not advising it. Probably
you absolutely
idea,
could. It's like creating an
right?
NFT of one. And it's exactly like what Wu-Tang did with their album.
Right.
Yeah, it's hard to build community that way if you only have one share. And as soon as I sell it to you, I now own 0 shares. It sounds like it's like, all right, you're my boss now. All right, and I've got plenty of complaints that I would like to file to HR. But it would be
deal with
it would also be hard to raise money on net capital, I think, too, if you were selling. If you're only selling one share, you only had a share of one in your company. Maybe you guys should do it. Maybe you take this podcast, form a company around it, and create a single share.
I think I came in hot last week with a bunch of good ideas. This one, I think I've kind of fallen off a cliff this time.
Yeah. Well, you didn't even go into detail on your one idea, so I'm not even convinced it exists. I think that was a lot of bullshit on your part.
You'll see when people are happy everywhere, construction workers everywhere.
What's your creation? I don't think I heard your creation.
Yeah.
That's
the problem.
All right, I'll tell it. That way it's on the air. I fucking thought of it. It's my idea. Utility workers, construction workers in general that switch job sites every day or multiple times a day, they're running around from site to site to site. They can't pee anywhere. There's no good places to pee. You have to stop and do a gas station. You got to do the double door. If you're in the woods, it's cake, no problem. But, for example, I know of a guy who got in trouble for pissing in a church parking lot. Middle of the day. Got caught, got called out, got in trouble. My invention is basically, you ever seen like the hampers, the laundry baskets that just fold up, the collapsible ones that pop up?
Yeah.
Make that with an empty bottom, nothing on the bottom, that just pops up, that's full body length. And then you're in a porta potty, essentially, and you just pee in that. You could have a little container with one of those urinal cakes in there. Helps with the smell, whatever. You dump it out at the end of the day. You're done. Doesn't help for shits. Not yet. I haven't gotten that far. But it's portable. You collapse it back up, throw it in the truck, and you're done. You're moving on. No one is no different than a porta john. No one can give you a hard time about it.
This sounds like it's
That's actually a
collapsible,
really good
though. Like
idea.
when you first described it, I thought it was like an accordion, like pee bottle, and then you were like, "But you can climb inside of it," and I was like, "Whoa!" Because originally I was like,
So imagine there's no bottom, right?
"Yep,
So you just step in
okay."
it, and then you pop it up, right?
It's sort of like
It
a
makes sense.
wardroom, so to speak. Like you're not
Yeah.
actually peeing in the device. You're just
No.
creating a.
I was thinking, it's a lot of work. I'm trying to make it as simple as possible. You could
Yeah.
make like a bladder, a rubber something bladder that you then have to empty out every day or whatever that attaches to it or something. But for now, let's just start with
I think the next
thing,
So the next step, you got to
That's
draw
my
some
idea.
concept sketches. I think maybe if you, I don't always recommend this, but if you can get a patent, I mean, you're golden.
That's my thing.
There are
That's
some
what
investors
I
who will
need to
invest
get
in
the
your
patent.
company just because you have a
Yeah.
patent, or they'll buy your company just because they want to buy the patent. So if you can come up with some concept sketches, you can submit that and get a patent.
Shit.
You're going to be cooking with gasoline, my friend. Then you can go on.
Maybe I'll get. All right. I know I'm an AutoCAD guy. I can whip it up in AutoCAD. Maybe get a little
Yeah, and then
creative
pawn
here.
your one share off
See what
on
I
someone.
can't do. Shit. That's my idea. Exactly. Sorry, bro. This is it. You either take the whole thing or you take nothing, and it is not
This
cheap.
one share is worth $1 billion.
There we go. So we're combining my shitty idea with my good
Making a
idea, and maybe
phenomenal
we'll get
idea.
something good out of it. Something decent. Okay. Before we get too far off track with my dumb ideas, tell us, I don't think we've gone into enough detail about your games. What games do you have, kind of? Can anyone play them yet? Or can everyone play them yet? And just give us a synopsis of
our
said
games are built around these ridiculous alien characters that we've created. It's a unique and original IP called the Noobs. And the Noobs are intellectual property.
IP,
so like the
IP.
Minions or the aliens from Toy Story, right? So they're just animated characters. And essentially they are these. Yep, we got all the trademarks and the filings, either in pending or issued.
Awesome.
We got all that fun stuff. So the company owns the IP, and the Noobs are basically these space invaders, these space aliens who just wander around, checking out different planets, looking for new places to live. They really embody what it means to be a noob. So, even though they create all of this wacky, sophisticated technology, they don't really know what to do with it. They don't always have clear goals or directions of what they're doing. So they're basically just stumbling through the universe, checking out different planets, basically looking for new places to live. And we have one game that really allows you.
This kind of sounds like
definitely,
Invader
we talk
Zim
about
to
Invader
me.
Zim. No, it's okay.
Sorry,
we
I'm
talk
sorry.
about Invader Zim a lot. In fact, we talked about it today in one of our meetings. So I was a big fan of Invader Zim. It's actually on Netflix if you're trying to relive the glory days. It is.
Oh, is it now?
Yeah, I loved that show growing up. No, it's okay. So
but
think of
like
the Minions
like,
meets Invader Zim.
It's
but they're a bunch of noobs and have no idea what they're doing. Their leader's name is Major Noob, and his superpower is he just makes decisions arbitrarily. And the noobs are constantly looking for new things to do, so they blindly follow him because he's the ideas man. So we've got two games in development. One is called Noobs in Space. We sort of think of that like our version of Angry Birds, and it's basically a really simple single player game where you are the captain of a noob mothership, and you've got a bunch of noob pilots that you're sending out to various planets to check them out and scan them for signs of life. And you basically your noob pilot will orbit the planet, and you just tap on the screen to change directions and dodge incoming asteroids, incoming icicles. We have all sorts of different hazards and creatures that you can encounter. And that's what it's all about, just sort of casually zipping around the universe, encountering bizarre creatures, dodging wacky obstacles, and just trying to scan as many planets as possible. So that's what Noobs in Space is all about. It's an introduction to the Noobiverse, and it allows you just to customize your noobs, wear crazy outfits, deck out your spaceships, and just fly around having a good time. And then we've got a second game in development.
A fun game
Sure.
I'll
Sure.
just chime in real quick while we're on it. I have experience with Noobs in Space. Great game. You're sitting around, just shooting the breeze, kill some time. I'm taking a shit.
Excellent.
Love playing that game when I'm taking a shit. It's a
And that's
nice,
what we're
fun,
looking for. And
easy
that's what
game.
mobile games
Yeah.
do such a great job of. Like people, you got your PC, you got your Xbox, you got your PlayStation, right? For when you're really dedicated, hardcore sitting there. And we want to build games that like enable you to play that way. But the beauty of mobile games is that, you can also play them when, you're commuting to work, or, you're in the bathroom, or, you're sitting in class and trying to pretend like you're paying attention, but you're not really paying attention.
Yes.
And so Noobs in Space, and I think as you,
Yeah. And that's,
I'll let you go, Rob. My apologies.
I did it again. I was going to say that's one of those things though. Once you get started, by the time I get up, I have the jelly legs. I have to get my sea legs back because I've been sitting on the toilet now for so long because I just
and then you're like, all right, let me go do something productive. You go sit on the couch, and then you're like, what was I doing? Oh yeah, playing that game again, and then that's what it's all about. So that's Noobs in Space.
Exactly.
And anyone who's interested, you can go to our website, zelgor.com, click the early access button, type in your phone number, and we'll text you a link to download Noobs in Space. And we'll also text you a link to download NoobTubes, which is our second game, which is in development. And that one is a little bit more intricate. There's a little bit more information that you need to have on the noobs to really understand what's going on here. So the noobs, as you may have seen or may not have seen, but they've got these big balloon-shaped heads, and they're also very absorbent. So what happens is they come in contact with any sort of liquid, and they instantly absorb it, and their heads inflate. Eventually, they get so top-heavy, they fall over, they can't get back up again. So the way that this species of aliens have evolved is they have created these backpacks called noob tubes. If you've ever played Call of Duty, you may have heard the term noob tube before. It's essentially the grenade launcher. And it got that nickname because it's the easiest weapon in the game to get kills with. So it's typically used in a similar fashion, like when you're throwing the dice at the fridge playing Risk. Like, oh, this guy's using a noob tube, he's an asshole, et cetera, et cetera. So we were like, what if we built an entire shooter style game where the only weapon was a noob tube and everyone had a grenade launcher and you were just grenade launching the crap out of each other? And that was basically the idea that helped us come up with the concept of the noobs. We're like, yeah, we'll create these alien characters. We'll call them noobs. We'll give them noob tubes. It'll be great. So noob tubes is essentially a grenade launcher style. It's really more of like a dodgeball style battle game. But because the noobs have this like spongy sort of skin and they're highly absorbent, they actually launch fruit at each other. So it becomes this like dodgeball style food fight where you've got this like bizarre alien sort of backpack and it's filled with fruit and you're just firing fruit back and forth at each other. So, we think of Noobs in Space as our version of Angry Birds, and then Noob Tubes is more like our version of Clash Royale or Clash of Clans or one of those games. And that one I think is it's got a lot of esports-like potential. It's very spectator friendly. And our long-term plan is, we want to take that game and basically make it the way that noobs battle for territories and how they go about conquering and invading other planets. So that's our long-term goal, is to bring the Noob Tubes battles to Earth and have people take over the world, much like you would do in Risk, only instead of rolling the dice over and over for 6 hours, you get to noob tube each other.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so you've mentioned obviously some of the taking over the world aspects of it, and it sounds a little bit like some of the like Pokemon Go or those other games that are involved. That is that kind of a direction you're looking to go, where people are really getting involved with their locales and taking over, I don't know, like your high school or this like prominent area in your town. Like, is that kind of a direction you're trying to take this, where it's very, very involved with your community, which I think, as we've seen with Pokemon Go, it led to it.
Yeah, that's always been my long-term vision, is building a game like Pokemon Go, where, Pokemon Go has this like paper toss like mechanic. I don't know if either of you guys remember paper toss back in the day. It was one of the original iPhone games that took the world by storm. So Pokemon Go, they basically just took, your GPS and then made it so that you could play paper toss to catch Pokemon. And so, we want to take that experience and build, the next evolution of it, right? Where, the map you're playing on is set up like Risk. So you're taking over places exactly like you said, Matt, places like your high school, your house, and you're taking over those places, with these noob tube battles. So you're building, a squad of noobs, you're strapping on the noob tube and, you're going down to Matt's brewery and you're just firing fruit everywhere. So, phase one is building the noob tube battles. And phase two is bringing them to Earth and allowing the noobs to start noob tubing, all, for everything and everywhere all at once.
That sounds remarkable. That just the you'll have some really intense things going on out there in real places. People losing their cool. Different kind of intensity than the Pokemon Go, where people are walking into fucking statues or something because they're trying to catch them. You'll have people shouting at each other and really getting into it. That's a blast. Oh my! I would love to go to Matt's brewery and just kind of sneak attack.
So
and say,
in the
"Fuck
early
you, this is
days,
mine now."
when Tim first invested, that was like the first thing that we built was our virtual world of Earth. And even before we had invented, before we created the noobs, before we came up with the concept of these noob tube battles, we just made a version of Earth that you could sort of take over by playing Risk, basically, and we made a bunch of really dumb arcade games. I mean, the arcade games themselves were solid in their own right, but they were just sort of meaningless arcade games, sort of concept games, and we just sort of plugged them in. We're like, all right, if you want to take over, this territory that your house is in, you play this, this game that we created, and we released that to like 2,000 or so testers, and it was really fascinating to see what people would do. They would start out by taking over places that they cared about. They'd take over their house or their high school, and they used that experience to learn which places in the game were like objectively the most valuable. Which in our game, it was airports, because we did Foursquare integration. So we just like took the number of check-ins and we like made that the level of the location, the territory. So all of these people, and we didn't have a lot of people, and the Earth, I don't know if you guys were aware, is very big. And people just started running into each other at these airports. And it was all virtual travel. So like my dad would run into, my roommate, Mark Podolsky, at, LAX, and my dad would show up and Mark would own it. And he would be like, what the fuck? How did Mark take this airport from me? So what would happen was, so my dad would take the airport. My dad takes the airport from Mark. And, my dad goes to bed or whatever. Mark wakes up, he takes the airport back. And this funny thing happens. My dad wakes up and he's furious. And he's like, who the hell took my airport? It's this Marky Mark guy again. So this is what happens. He not only does Marky Mark lose, LAX, but my dad proceeds to figure out all of the other territories that Mark owns. And just it becomes a personal vendetta. And before you know it, like he's taking over Mark's high school and Mark's favorite restaurants. And, he's in Mark's home state. And then my dad would go to bed and it would be the same thing all over again. And it was amazing to see how, like, the sentimental attachment that you have to places in the real world, it's a great way to learn how to play games, but it's also like a powerful distraction, right? Like your goal is to take over the world in this game. So like, whether or not, you own these, arbitrary locations is largely meaningless. But it's like a side quest in a game, It's like, yeah, I'm trying to take over the world, but what I'm really trying to do right now is just wipe Marky Mark off the face of the planet. And so we saw like the rage that that people had when losing territories that had sentimental value to them, and we were like, wow, that's such a powerful thing that we could potentially gamify if we can build this game in the way that we want to do it.
That's incredible. That's so funny. So they didn't actually physically.
No, they didn't.
Be
so
at LAX,
before Pokemon Go came out, it was all virtual travel. The location-based game space pre-Pokemon Go was basically considered dead. People had tried to make games where you could physically move around in the real world to play them, but unless you have an IP like the Pokemon IP that's like going to motivate people, like I said, like our dream when we were 10 was to go be a Pokemon master, and Pokemon Go allowed you to live that dream. So unless you have something
Mhm.
like such a strong emotional driver to get me to physically walk around outside, I want to play games on my couch. So that was like my sort of founding idea going into the space, was I wanted to gamify the real world, but I wanted to enable people to travel virtually. So you could take over LAX, you could go to Japan, you could go to Cuba, wherever, and you could take over the world from the comfort of your couch. That was like our tagline. That was what we wanted to do. So that was what made it, my dad's ability to track down Mark, so impressive. Was like Mark could have been anywhere in the world, uh, and he was still able to. They were able to hunt each other down and attack each other.
That is remarkable. That is great. So you can't just search Marky Mark.
Yeah, no, he's got
to. He's got to work.
There's some real thinking there, and there's some. It's risk rules, right? So you can, you take over a territory connected to one that you own. So when you find a territory, right, that Marky Mark owns, okay, I can search in this area. I'll probably find some other Marky Mark territories. But it's also the case too. Once you understand like the rules of the game and what places are the most valuable, you start to run into the same people over and over again. And so like it started out as a war of two, but then more people started playing and more people started figuring out like, hey, these airports are super valuable. And before you know it, my dad has like 50 arch nemesis, instead of just one.
Holy shit. I love it. I love it.
I mean, just right off the bat, like just getting people playing against each other like that is such a good idea. And that instantly makes me more involved than it would be just playing a random game with no like just like a fake map and stuff. I think that's what make Pokemon Go so great, and that's what I think is going to ultimately make your game so great. But I want to go kind of on the other side of things, and I just want to hear a little bit about some of the mistakes you feel like you've made and some maybe the wrong decisions you've made over time.
Lessons learned.
This
Lessons
is
learned.
maybe the easiest question I've ever been asked. By far, my biggest mistake. Back in 2012, like I said, I'm at Draper University. Tim Draper, one of the largest Bitcoin holders in the world. And he's talking to me about Bitcoin this, Bitcoin that, your game should take Bitcoin, or the Bitcoin, like literally his whole world revolved around Bitcoin. And I was just sitting there like a schmuck being like, yeah, like I'm kind of skeptical of this whole crypto space. And so if I just bought any amount of Bitcoin back then, I mean, I wouldn't need to be raising any money at all. I would be set. So, I mean, without question, like I should have been taking crypto.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of people who could say that. I had
literally one of the largest advocates in the world for cryptocurrency just hammering me over the head with it. And I was just like, I don't know, like, we'll see. And I remember going back to college and talking to another friend of ours, like, oh, should we like maybe try to mine Bitcoin? Whatever, it seems too hard, like, whatever. So just like all of my thoughts and opinions towards cryptocurrency in the last 8 or 9 years, I would say, are probably is easily my biggest regret, for sure. But recently I've come around. I'm like, you know what? I'm tired of missing the train. I'm now on the crypto express. So I'm all in, baby.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. I like it a lot. So bottom line, big tagline.
Absolutely.
Listen
and
to
Tim. I think he's saying just Bitcoin's going to be worth $250K a coin by 2023. So there was a time in my life where I would have been like, there's no way.
Oh my God.
But now I'm like, I've been wrong every step of the way when it comes to crypto. So, why not at this point?
Yeah.
I mean, even Doge was worth like what, like 40 cents a couple weeks ago. So it's like,
That's, I mean, I bought Doge at 17 cents and I've made hand over fist on it, just on a $250 investment. It's just fucking bonkers. That shit's really fucking crazy. Bonkers.
And I guess that's like, you sit back and it's like, damn, I wish I was just like extremely reckless back then, which probably isn't a good thought. But like, I wish there was just something in my brain that was like, you take all your money and buy this cryptocurrency. But yeah,
Dude, take $100, just to
literally.
think about how much that would be worth now. Because that was back in the day, man. That was,
And Bitcoin was worth nothing back then,
yeah,
essentially. I mean, geez, $100 would have bought you 200 coins or whatever. I mean, you'd be
Oh my God, it's
fucking
sickening to think
loaded.
about, really.
yeah, dude. That's crazy.
It is.
It
But
is.
let
We need to stop. We need to move on. I
yeah,
don't, I don't, I don't like hearing about it.
yeah. No, I'm sorry I asked the question. One, it was too easy, and yeah. But I do have kind of an extension of that. I've read some recent articles. I mean, you appeared on Yahoo Finance and a couple of other sources. And actually one that I'm going to hit on right now is your game was Noobs in Space specifically was described as a hyper casual game by this website Globe Newswire. And I'm sure that they sourced this from somewhere else. But how do you feel about being called a hyper casual game? And I don't think it's a bad thing. I think that's exactly what Noobs in Space is going for. And the fact that I've played it and I've had a ton of fun, and there's not a lot going on with Noobs in Space that you have to do, but it makes it just so much fun where it's just so easy, like Rob said, to play on the toilet or just when you're just
Yeah,
putzing
I
around doing
don't
whatever.
shy away from the hyper casual tag at all. I think that's exactly what Noobs in Space is. Like you just said, it's a game that you can sort of get into and play casually, and you can also sort of lose yourself in it and play it a little bit more competitively. And it's primarily a single player game, but we also have this deep space mode where you can compete against the global community of players and try to get as far into deep space as possible. And we've talked about adding, versions of that where you can challenge your friends and race against each other through space. So, yeah, I don't think necessarily that, all of the games we make forever will be hyper casual, but I certainly think that it applies to Noobs in Space for sure.
Yeah. So then, like, going on to this Yahoo Finance article from just earlier this year, January 18th, 2021, it came out. You guys are starting to attract some real talent in the field. And this article mentions Spencer Bramson, and I know there's been some others that I'm sure you can highlight upcoming on your answer. But how have you gotten some of these bigger players in the video game landscape and just in general? Because I mean, I know that Spencer was leaving a larger company and coming to this small company and just latching on. Like, what do you offer them that is enticing for them to leave what may seem to many like a more
Yeah.
secure
So,
job?
what I hope we have to offer them is, the opportunity for them to feel like, their voices are being heard, like they can make meaningful contributions to what we're doing. They can work on what they want to work on, what they're inspired to work on. And they feel like they can, be in control of their lives. A lot of these guys have been, worked on massively successful games, or, have worked, for these, Fortune 500 companies. And in those experiences, it's mostly you're being told what to do and when to be there. And, you don't have a lot of opportunities to have a lot of creative input on what it is you're working on, or in a lot of ways, you're forced to work on things you feel like you sort of have to do that you don't necessarily want to do. So, my ability to just enable these people to,
Mm-hmm.
work on these projects in a way that they feel like they're contributing, that they're bringing value, that their ideas and opinions are being heard, and they're working on the parts of the game that they enjoy, that they love, that they want to work on. And they're doing it in a way where, like I said, they feel like they have control over their lives. I'm not making sure that they're clocking in or clocking out. I'm not policing, time off or anything like that. So, yeah, just trying to, give these people the opportunity to come together and work on something that's, fun and exciting. And the other thing too is that, these guys come from, you know, the console world and building PC games and things like that. And it's like, building a mobile game in a lot of ways is a lot simpler. It's a lot smaller. It's a lot easier compared to what these guys, have built their careers doing. So I think that enables them to focus more on how can we make this something fun, and less on like, I'm just going to sit here and grind away and build servers and things like that. So You'd have to ask each person individually, but in general, I think that that's sort of what I hope the value that we bring to them.
Are there any people you would like to highlight as being especially influential to your growth?
People I'd like to highlight as being influential to my growth. That is a strange question. So, I mean, in terms of people on our team who have, it was much harder. Yes,
question.
Obviously, like you said, Spencer has been great. His experience in working with Fortune 500 companies, Procter and Gamble, and all these consumer goods. It's great to have somebody in these conversations when we're talking about building games who has that sort of mindset and is like, hey, remember, we need to be able to have these types of conversations with these types of brands. Will Teixeira is our lead engineer we brought on. He's been incredible. We call him our chief mad scientist. He just like whip things up in the Unity engine, which is what we use to build our games, incredibly quickly. And he used to lead an entire team of engineers at his previous job, and they were building games for PC and PlayStation and Xbox. So now it's a much smaller team where there's a lot less things that you got to worry about on a day-to-day basis. So we can just sort of enable him to work on the things that he wants to work on, and the things that sort of inspire him. And then Andres Gonzalez, he's our lead designer on Noobs in Space. He's the one, designing all of these different planets that you're zipping around. And he was the lead combat designer on a game called BioShock Infinite, which sold millions of copies, won all sorts of awards. So people who have, a lot more experience, building massively successful games than I have. And Phil Fogerite, our chief product officer, he's worked on The Sims, The Incredible Hulk. He worked on Dungeons and Dragons Online with Will. These guys have all been incredibly successful in their career working on major titles. And I just learned so much from them about what it takes to build a game. But then we also have a team of amazing artists as well. Our art director, Joy Sang, our lead concept artist, Monica O, and we just brought on a UI artist as well named Suzanne Geary. And the art that they create and the way that they're able to bring the IP to life, I think really above all else is what enabled us to get so many people to invest. So, you've got these guys with, experience, sort of the traditional experience that investors look for that help make people feel comfortable in the game. But it's really our art team that, has the talent and that's what I think really shines through in our products, that really gets people excited and emotionally connected to what we're doing. So it's really, everyone on our team, I think, is, contributes tremendously to what we're doing and helps take what we're doing to the next level. And, my job every day is to show up and try to contribute any value whatsoever to this team of amazing people who are working on this.
Well, you navigated that question with poise and grace, and you did a hell of a job. That was a tough one there.
Thank you, Rob. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't mean it as a tough question. I wasn't, whatever, fuck it. Like, I'm not here to ask the basic ass questions.
It wasn't in the notes.
I wasn't sure if it was like,
I didn't see it coming.
Talk about like the people on your team who are helping grow it. Talk about, people who've inspired you. There's just a lot of different ways to interpret that question. So that's what sort of threw me for a second.
Right. No, I mean, that's kind of why I worded it that way. I just want to, I'm just very intrigued with your thoughts because, it's very clear that you're an intelligent individual who has a lot of stuff figured out as far as this goes. And I'm really impressed, honestly, with the people you've attracted because I have kept tabs on that. And I've looked into a lot of these people that you have gotten in Zelgor. And I just think that's really cool. But you kind of mentioned just on your answer there about being the boss and just trying to bring something to the table. And like, what do you think the best and worst things about being your own boss are, and where have you brought the value, and where do you think your shortcomings are, and how have you tried to
Well,
mitigate those?
in terms of like the best thing about being your own boss, it's definitely, you get to, work whatever hours you want. You get to make all the rules, right? You get to sort of build the culture. And that's really, I think, part of the value that I try to create is in building the culture, bringing people into the company who I think will fit what we're trying to do. And that's really the most fun part for me, is just working with the people on our team every day, building the game, building the IP, and just being a part of these conversations, which are, inherently extremely ridiculous, and a tremendous amount of fun. And so that's sort of the best part about, being the boss and running the company. The worst part, though, is that you just feel absolutely terrible anytime you take any time off whatsoever, right? So you think, oh, you're the boss, like I can go on vacation whenever you want, right? It's like, oh, it's, whatever holiday, like I'm just going to take this day off. But as the CEO, and especially, at the early stage, like now, we have enough people in the company where if I don't do anything for like 15 minutes, it's not like the entire company like comes to a screeching halt. Uh, but just like anytime you take any time off at all, you're just like, oh, I should really be working right now. I should really be doing something more productive. So that's probably the worst part about being the boss, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, John, I'm going to say, I'm not just tooting your horn here. I've known you now for a few years. I'm very proud of that. You're probably one of the first people that would come to mind if I had to pick someone to organize an enjoyable culture that is obviously has to be productive, but again, is pleasant and makes people want to show up and continue to do things and work hard. Obviously, you're a charismatic guy, hysterical, like Matt said,
Well, that's
smart.
really,
Which could have
that's what
fooled
I was
me.
going to say.
Could have fooled
My
me a few
biggest
years
job
back.
above all else is to fool people into thinking that I know what I'm doing and that I'm a smart individual.
Right here, you got me. But it's super cool what you're doing. It's awesome. I try to talk about it whenever I can and tell people about it because I'm not fucking involved at all. But nevertheless, I feel proud to just know someone who is doing it.
Well, I
And
appreciate
it's
it.
cool as
And
hell.
I think what you
love
guys
it.
are doing is amazing, because I grew up in Boston, which is like the sports talk radio capital of the country, in my unbiased opinion. And so, so I grew up, a huge sports fan, listening to sports talk radio, and like always, a part of me wanted to do that as a career, is just, get on the mic and spit out hot takes. So it takes a tremendous amount of courage and bravery to get on camera, especially, and to do what you guys are doing. So I am equally as envious of you guys putting yourselves out there and doing this.
We don't get paid for this.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Exactly.
Not yet.
I spent many years not getting paid to do what I'm doing. So,
Yeah. Excellent point. Hell of a point.
Yeah, I mean, I think I have a lot of those same interests. I was a big radio fan in Chicago, where I was listening to sports radio all the time. And what actually got me really into wanting to have a podcast was a Boston radio host, Kirk Minahan, who currently has a podcast on Barstool Sports. And like, that's really been an influence to me. So it's just kind of funny how we've crossed path there in a weird way, and hopefully our success.
Yeah, and let me just say, Kirk Minahan was horrible. It was absolutely. I mean, one of those guys that made you just want to scream at your radio. I mean, you guys know, you guys are sports fans. I mean, we were like, 20 years in an unprecedented run of dominance, and Kirk just gets on the radio every day complaining, and the sky was falling every day. The sky could not have been falling every single day. And yet with Kirk, like everything was on the verge of collapse every single day in Boston sports. But he's yeah.
And that's Matt's idol.
Well, Matt's a Chicago fan, so I feel like that's a more appropriate mindset, when the Bulls are trading multiple firsts for Vucevic.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's Yeah, we don't have to get into that. That's clearly been a mess.
I'm just looking forward to the off season where you guys trade Vucevic to the Celtics for nothing. Where you're like, this is a horrible idea. We're going to reverse the trade. We're just going to completely backpedal, and we're just going to sell Vucevic for pennies on the dollar. I'm excited for that moment.
You're going to get Danny Ainge's Chipotle loyalty card. Very
and
valuable.
A slew of second-round
very
picks.
Very valuable. And that's it. Yes, and even the cap, whatever that takes, even the cap.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to keep you on here too long, John. I know you're obviously a busy guy and you've got things to do and everything that. You are welcome to stay on as we kind of hit some last minute topics before we finish this thing up. But I just want to just right now tell you thank you so much for coming on. And I don't think I've learned a lot about you and your company.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm going to jump off here now just because this has taken a lot more time than I thought that it would. So I've got to get back to keeping the company afloat. But I appreciate you guys having me on. Obviously, big fans of both of you guys, and just appreciate you guys taking the time and giving me so much of your time to talk about the nonsense of my daily life.
I think I speak for us both when I say we loved it. We loved it. Yeah. Before you go, though, I'm not going to let y'all fuck just yet. I'll be very quick.
Sure
I had a whole bunch of rapid fire questions I wanted to ask you based on what you spoke about earlier. I'll just hit you with two of them. You mentioned you played Halo and Call of Duty growing up.
Easy.
Pick one. What are you,
Halo,
a Halo guy
absolutely.
or a COD guy?
I'm somebody that... Okay.
That's wrong. Next question. First song you download, you have a very intimate relationship with Napster. First song you download on Napster.
Yep,
Do you remember what it was? I remember my first song.
Money for Nothing, Dire Straits. And it was because my grandfather told me to download it. I had never heard it before, but I'm a big fan of the song now.
Awesome choice. Oh, yeah, hell yeah. Mine, Who's Fat? Weird Al Yankovic.
We were probably downloading the same files from each other then because I downloaded plenty of Weird Al.
Yeah.
What was your?
Had to be.
I'm going to fire a question back to you. What was your first Weird Al song? Do you remember? Who's Fat? Oh, there you go. You're right. Yeah,
Who's Fat?
Who's Fat? When the guest isn't listening.
Yeah.
For me, it was The Night Santa Went Crazy. That was my first Weird Al song. Matt, were you a Weird Al fan?
Oh wow. Oh, there's so many good choices. Yeah.
I was definitely a Weird Al fan. I used to have a Weird Al CD that I got for Christmas one year. So I love parody songs and have also thought about trying to do some of those in my free time that I have not quite come together on.
Well, I can help you with some lyrics.
Well, yeah, we'll workshop it. Give me one more of your questions, Rob. These quick fire ones have been pretty amazing.
Those were the best quick fire ones. The rest were just kind of more okay. Other than Pokemon, favorite
Game Boy game other than Pokemon.
I'll allow you to think right quick because I have a quick answer. Sports Illustrated had this football game on Game Boy Advance, and that thing was fucking fire. You could upgrade your characters slowly throughout the game, but you would get to the point where all of your people were way faster than the other ones, and it would just make for hilarious gameplay. And it was a fun little game.
If that was your favorite Game Boy game, you should download Retro Bowl. It sounds like I play.
Oh, Retro Bowl's tight. Yeah,
I have
Retro Bowl's
lost way too many hours to Retro Bowl, but I used to play this other game. I moved on, as I got older and more mature. I graduated, or I never really graduated from Pokemon, but I also became a huge Yu-Gi-Oh fan. So there was a Yu-Gi-Oh card game that I played on my Game Boy a tremendous amount as well. Wow. So those were the two Game Boy games that I wore out the buttons on.
Okay. That's good. I like it. I like hearing it.
Awesome. Well, get out of here, John. We don't want to. We've taken up way too much of your time. You've been so generous. So, once again, just thank you so much.
Generous, happy to be here. I appreciate it, guys. And best of luck with the rest of the show.
Thank you so much.
Oh yeah, we'll fuck it up from here. Don't worry.
Yeah, this is all downhill from here. If you're still listening, you're not getting anything great. But yeah, I mean, that was obviously a great interview with John. That was a ton of fun. But let's get into a little bit of our news. Just want to hit this right off the top. Rob's laptop is a fucking mess.
It's on its last legs. I had my laptop. I don't think we've mentioned this on here. I've had my laptop since you and I were in school together. I bought it our senior year. And that was years ago, 6 years ago now. This baby's 6 years old, a little over 6, I think. And it's been through the ringer, but it's really starting to go. How many times I've been late for our recordings? Every time since we've come back?
Yeah.
Since we've come back.
Yeah. It hasn't been egregious. Today was the worst because me and John were just on the horn, and I'm just like, wow, I'm taking this guy's fucking time. And he's obviously, he told me beforehand he's got something to do. And I was just like,
well, you didn't tell me that. You didn't tell me that.
Well, I didn't know that
until... in with me. You didn't check in with me until 7:52 for an 8 o'clock podcast.
I know.
You know my laptop needs 15 minutes to warm up.
I know. I'm not saying that I'm without fault here, but I'm just saying that those, like, we had a good chat just about our own personal lives and stuff like that. But it was fucking, I felt so bad. I can't believe he gave us as much time as he did.
Are we recording?
Yeah.
Are you sure? It says finished.
Where?
Up top, the one with John, finished.
I don't have that.
Top of the screen, the one with John, it says finished.
It doesn't say finished on my screen, and we're still recording.
Okay, let's move on. I just wanted to make sure. I'm worried.
It looks good on my. I do not have what you have. If hopefully it's not, and if this all didn't record, I will probably fucking cry. And I mean, because
I'll cry too. I'll cry with you.
Because that'd be fucking brutal.
On the plus side, my laptop, it doesn't start. I press start anyways, just a brief description of my issue in case there's any techies out there that can help me. I push the start button and it's just hung up. It's like it's like a engine that won't turn over.
You need to get a new alternator.
Phase, and there's one light that's blinking like it's trying to do it, but it won't hit that screen to get everything running, and it just takes time. It took 20 minutes. Legitimately 20 minutes.
That's crazy. Like living in 2004.
It's nuts. I gotta get something, but I really don't want to fucking spend the money.
I know, they're so expensive.
I know, it's such a commitment. And you'd think like 6 years in laptop years is pretty long, but like I don't want to fucking do that every 6 years. Be dropping a couple $1,000, whatever the hell it costs for a good laptop nowadays.
I know.
On the plus side, I have fixed what I believe to be an issue with my microphone. Last week, I was bragging about how you bought us new mics, and we got some feedback. Yeah, we got some feedback that you sounded great. I sounded possibly worse than ever. And I plugged in today. I was self-conscious about it. I was thinking about it. I plugged in today, had the microphone hooked up again. It was set as the default microphone, same as last week, except I noticed the switch was off. The switch was in the off position the whole time the mic was not on. So I don't know what's been picking up my voice. I have no idea what's been picking it up.
I don't know either.
But I'm back, and I pray that my sound quality is improved.
I think you sound a lot better. What doesn't look better is your golf game. Tell me a little bit about that.
No, it doesn't. Weather's nice. Beautiful day here in Knoxville. 85. We're in mid-80s today. Fucking great. This past weekend, really, since maybe last Friday, today is Tuesday, I've gone to the driving range 4 times. The first 2 times, I was electric. I was smooth. Just smooth flush shots. I went Sunday, and I was a step off, but still fine. And today was just a fucking train wreck. And that's the problem. I don't know what I'm doing different. And I hate when that happens because I try to do the same thing and I'm just hitting fucking duds. Just fucking darts into the ground. Shit's going right. I don't miss right. It sucks. I miss left unless the driver.
You know what's the worst about that is when you have some guy to the right or left of you just hitting lasers every time too. And you're so far deep in your head. That's where I don't understand how you can play on the PGA Tour, because I would be so deep in my own brain where I would lose it. I would break like 6 clubs a fucking match if I was playing on the PGA Tour. It'd be fucking brutal.
It is brutal. You ever break a club?
I have not. Knock on wood. Big knock on wood there, but I have not.
I broke a club. snapped it right over my leg.
Oh, I
Like
could totally
Big
see
Pop,
that.
striking out.
I mean,
Snapped that.
I have definitely slammed a club into the ground and put the total face just into the earth and like have to wipe it off. And people look at me, I'm just like, no, I'm good. Don't worry, it's fine. But I've not yet broken a club, but I definitely see that day coming sooner
I don't
rather than
recommend
later. I don't want to do it. It'll fucking
And although
reshaft
it is
that
funny,
shit.
it makes because whoever you're with thinks it's hysterical.
Yeah.
So then you laugh about it, So
Later
it's
on.
worth it,
Yeah.
Even in the moment, I was like, Jesus, that was ridiculous. I'm an idiot, And you're already having a fun time again.
Yeah. No, you're out in a golf range or golf course. You're just trying to have a good time. I do hate about the range that fucking fake grass trying to hit
this real grass.
Ooh, wow.
Real grass.
Because like
the turf sucks.
The turf sucks because you're trying to take when you're hitting, you're trying to take a little bit of a divot. You're trying to hit the ball on your downswing to get that perfect swing, but you don't get that feedback on the fake turf.
It's exactly right. You might be doing it, but you don't know.
But you don't know. And then those shots come out like ass, and you're just like, fuck, I fucking suck at this game. Like, it's so frustrating. And you come out of the range feeling 1,000,000% worse, but you might have actually been like fucking striking the ball perfectly.
Yeah, that's the thing. That there are so many times when I leave the range feeling worse than when I got there.
Yeah,
it's so counterintuitive. Like, why do I ever even go? If I just go straight to the course, don't think about shit, I'll do fine. I'll do okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's the best I can do. And if I go to the range, you're right. It's all mental, and it all goes downhill very quickly.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. Yeah, any last minute thoughts you got rattling around your brain before we close this thing up?
Not real. I mean, I've always got stuff. Nothing major. First day back at the gym today.
Oh, that is something. Yeah,
I did it. I went. It felt good. What'd you
work on? What'd you work on?
Oh, I just did I did one of every body part. I hit one of every body part to get the muscles back.
Yeah.
I don't want to overtime. I'll be fucking dead if I did any more like tomorrow, next 2 days. So I just wanted to give a little reintroduction, hit them all, hit them quick. It was an intro. It was an intro meetings in and out.
Good.
But I did hit the sauna, and I love the fucking sauna.
I know you're a big sauna guy.
Oh, it's so good.
Sauna is really so good.
I took my shoes and socks off, which I don't usually do. I really wanted to enjoy the experience.
Yeah. Just get all the way back there and just enjoy it. So what level of open were the gyms? Is it like full go, or was
it's been full go, which is why I did not go. I hadn't been in probably 6 or 7 months because back then it was really bad. We're in the kind of peak of it. The gym was still open, which was surprising, but everyone was wearing masks, which is good.
Yeah.
But now, since then, people stopped. They just stopped. They stopped caring at the front desk. No one cared. So I was like, okay, I can't be here anymore. But now, I'm fully vaccinated as of yesterday morning. I got 2 weeks after my second shot.
Congrats.
And so, yeah, big day. And then 2, the case counts, I check them all the time, are so low here that both of those things combined, I felt comfortable enough going. So I fucking went.
Nice. Well, good.
But they're full bore. They never stopped ever.
That's nuts to me. I mean, that's just living in Tennessee, stupid. I guess. I mean,
it's
certainly not the smartest thing. No. All right. Well, there are some other stories we could hit, but we talked just so long with John, and it was a great conversation. I mean, I couldn't be happier right now. I am on cloud fucking 9 after speaking with him, just hearing his ideas and everything like that. That was a hell of a talk. So
the Draper University stuff was so fascinating.
Yeah.
And it's especially funny because we had no idea about, neither of us had a clue.
We both
us looking at each other.
Like, what the fuck?
It was like, is this a joke? Like, we were legitimately like, is this a joke?
No, I had no idea. I had absolutely no idea. I was like, should I know about this? Like,
and then hearing how big of a deal it was so cool.
Yeah. No, I think that's a big takeaway of it. And I'll probably release just the interview. On YouTube, I'm going to release just the interview portion on YouTube. So if you just want to listen to that, visit our YouTube page. We've got clips on there. We've got highlights. We've got lowlights, all of that stuff. Of course, follow us on Instagram and Twitter, where we also post clips and just other quips and little random arguments that I get into with mostly conservative assholes on Twitter. And yeah, just, rate us 5 stars, give us a follow, just engage with us, tell us what you want to hear about, give us story ideas, whatever you want. I mean, we're people of the people, Would you agree with that, Rob?
We try to be. I'm absolutely on board. Give us a 1 if you want. Fucking rate us. Give us some feedback, maybe.
Yeah, you don't have to rate us 5 stars if you don't feel like we're a 5-star podcast, but we're trying to get there. It's a growth game.
If you give us less than 5 stars, give us a comment. That's all.
Give us a reason why. Yeah, I'm okay with it. You can't just give us 1 star and then just be like, I'm out. Just 1 star. Like, that's a fucking asshole move. Don't be a fucking asshole about it. We want to hear about it. But yeah, today was obviously a lot of fun. Thank you guys so much for listening. We will talk to you next week. This has been Another Week With.